Hi guys, it is Friday Eve wash up, i.e. Thursday night. Skippy's in the bath. I've just had a shower, I've just run the bath for her, so she's now in the bath. So it gives me a chance to do this video for you. Snoop's going to sit down over there. He knows it's going to be apple pies in a minute. Time now is about 9:15 in the evening, so perfect bit of timing. So I was going over things in my mind what I could talk to you guys about. And there's a couple of things that came to mind, and I'll run those past you and see how you get on with them. Now, the first thing I was going to talk about was air shows. Now, as a child, I loved aircraft, absolutely loved them, adored them. And my grandfather had been in the RAF during the Second World War. Obviously, that probably fueled my desire to know a bit more about aircraft. And my grandfather took me to my very first air show, and I was probably about 14 or 15 years old when he took me to my first air show. And he took me to an air show at a place called Motorbike, which was just outside Cambridge, which was an RAF station at the time. And that's where I went to my very first air show. Now, I didn't know what to expect because I've never been to an air show before, and it was fantastic, absolutely fantastic. Now, there was a fighter called the English Electric Lightning, which was like a frontline fighter at the time. Extremely powerful jet fighter. And this thing did a fly past. It took off the runway in front of me, and it got to the end of the runway and it just went ballistic. They just pulled the stick back and they went straight up, afterburners on, and the roar was unbelievable. And my ribs rattled with the vibration, and you could see the afterburners lit up at the back of the aircraft. It just went straight up, and this thing went up like a rocket, went up and up and up and up and disappeared into the clouds. The noise was sensational, and there's a little 14-year-old boy. It was a really interesting experience for me, never having been there before. I loved it. And my granddad was in his element. He could see I was really into this. Shortly after that, we had the Red Arrows. Now, the Red Arrows did a display for us. Now, this was the first air show I'd ever been to, so I didn't know what the Red Arrows were going to do. I'd seen them on the TV flying around, but I'd never been to an air show and watched them. So anyway, these aircraft all take off. I can't remember if they took off or if they just appeared. I can't remember. I know when I was at Mildenhall, they were actually on the ground and they took off. But I can't remember if they did that at Waterbeach or if they just came over to the airfield. I can't honestly remember that bit. But I can remember them turning up, flying through the sky, and they did their display. Now, there's part of their display they did where two of the aircraft broke away from the main formation, and they did this kind of low sweep around behind you, and then they'd come back. And I hadn't paid attention to this. I was too busy watching the main formation and the smoke trails. It was fascinating, absolutely fascinating. And then all of a sudden, these two aircraft appeared from nowhere and flew right over the top of us. I've never jumped so high in my life. My granddad burst out laughing when he saw what happened. And yeah, it really made me jump. I just didn't see them coming. The roar and the sudden shock of it all was amazing. So that was the first air show that I ever went to. And I loved air shows. I did go to quite a few air shows after that, but most of my air shows ended up being Mildenhall. Now, RAF Mildenhall used to have a air show every year, and it was epic. It was a fantastic air show. And I don't know how many of you out there who are watching this ever went to Mildenhall air show, but it was a really good do. So on this particular occasion I'm going to tell you about, I went to the air show with my then gay partner, and myself and my gay partner both had motorbikes, but he said to me, let's go to Mildenhall. He said, you can come on the back of my bike and we can get in easy, because whenever you went to Mildenhall you had to queue up to get in, whereas if you're on a motorbike you could get past all the queues and get straight in. So that's what we did. He took his bike, I was the pinion passenger, off we go. Get to Mildenhall, get straight in, no trouble at all. Park it with all the other bikes. We had a really, really good time. It was fantastic. I had a lovely day there. But right towards the end of the day, there was an announcement on the tannoy system saying that there's a storm approaching and that they were going to stop flying until the storm had passed by. And you could see the sky getting blacker and blacker, and then you could hear the rumbles of thunder and lightning in there. And my partner said to me, I think we'd better go. We'd only got about another hour before the end of the air show anyway, so we thought it would be a good idea to get out while the going was good, before the rain came, not forgetting we're on a motorbike, guys. So we jump on the bike, get down to the gate. A lot of other people had the same idea to try and get out before the storm hit. Well, we got just off the airbase at Mildenhall and the heavens opened. Now, I was in the fortunate position, as I was a pinion passenger, that I could tuck myself in behind my rider. And so I tucked myself in, kept my arms and my legs in, ducked my head down, and I just hid behind him. And he was taking the brunt of it. He got the lot. And it was one of those torrential downpours where the roads became flooded. And we got back as far as Lavenham, and there was this huge flood across the road. And he was so wet by the time we got there. He put his legs down and rode his motorbike through this flood with his legs out and creating a huge wave, which soaked me as well. And we were so wet, by the time we got back, we were both soaked to the skin. And that is one of my most vivid memories of going to Mildenhall. But while we're still on the subject of Mildenhall, the very, very first air show I ever took my son to was Mildenhall. Now, I used to live at a village called Isleham, just outside Mildenhall. So I knew all the back roads to Mildenhall. So that was in my favour. I said to my son, do you fancy going to an air show? And he said, cool, yes. So I said, okay, we're going to go to Mildenhall. So we set off early in the morning, and I knew there'd be queues, but the way I was going, there'd be fewer queues than if we went on the main roads. So that's what we did. We hit all the little country lanes. We got there in good time, but we still didn't get in before the air show started. Now, what happened was we got dead in line. The road approaching Mildenhall runs around the outskirts of the airfield, and part of it lines up dead with the end of the main runway. So I'm in my car. I had a little Vauxhall Nova. I was in my Vauxhall Nova, and the air show was just starting, and we were dead in line with the main runway. And there was these two Tornado jets lined up on the runway right beside us, just the other side of the fence. And they started rolling. You saw the afterburners come up, and these things went hurtling down the runway, and they went up. Well, one went up. Now, this is where the bit where I went to Water Beach, and those red arrows caught me. Now, I sort of knew roughly what was going to happen. My son, I said to him, wind the window down and sit on the top ledge of the door so you can see the air show. So he did that, and the jets took off, and he watched the one going straight up. That catches your attention, which caught his attention. So that went straight up. Now I'm watching the other one. Now the other one took off, he kept low, and he went round. And he came all the way round, and I was watching him. I could just see him every now and again going around and see the rooftops. You could just see the aircraft coming around. And he lined himself up for the main runway again. And don't forget, we're dead in line for this main runway. So my son's still watching this one that went straight up. He wasn't paying attention to where this other one went. And this other one came in right over the top of our car and buzzed the main runway. Well, I've never seen my son jump so high in his life. He nearly fell out of the car. It was hilarious. It was absolutely hilarious. He had a smile from ear to ear. He loved it, absolutely loved it. And he was still a schoolboy at the time, and that was fantastic. And that brought back my memories of Water Beach, seeing what happened to him, and my granddad laughing when it made me jump, and my son the same, and me laughing at him for his response. It was absolutely fantastic. I'll never ever forget it. So yeah, those were my air show experiences, but there was one other experience I had with aircraft, and that was all thanks to my granddad. Let me just get the bowls and the plates. Well, I'll do the breadboard first, guys. And this was a wonderful experience. My grandfather treated me to a flight in a Tiger Moth over at Cambridge Airport. Now, my grandfather worked at Cambridge Airport, and so he was very friendly with a lot of the people there. And one of the people was an ex-Blenheim pilot from the Second World War, who he was in the RAF with. And they were really good friends. And his friends said to my granddad, would you like to come for a flight in my Tiger Moth? And my granddad said, oh no, he said, I'm too old for that now. He said, I'll keep my feet on the ground. He said, but my grandson would love to come up with you. And so it was arranged that I went over to Cambridge with my granddad, and I went for a flight in this Tiger Moth. Now, Tiger Moths aren't fast aircraft, guys. They are beautiful aircraft, lovely aircraft, but they're not fast by any means. So I get one of those Biggles helmets. You've seen the little leather Biggles helmets and the little mask? That's what I had on. So I sat in the back, I put the straps on, you put two shoulder straps over, and you clip them down to a central buckle, and I think there was one come up between your legs as well, to hold you in if the aircraft became inverted. So I'm strapped in, I'm in the back, and the pilot was in front of me, and off we go. We trundle off down the runway, and we take off. And the pilot said to me, what would you like to do? And I said, I don't know. I said, you show me what the aircraft can do, because I've never been in a Tiger Moth before. So he said, all right, leave it to me. So what he did was he said, we'll do a bit of hedge hopping. Now, Cambridge is in the fens, so it's very flat, and the rivers are banked up, so you get, the river is often higher than the land around it. And so that's what this was like. So he takes the aircraft down really low, and we're flying along the edge of this river bank. And then there's this farmer ploughing the field, and so he banks the aircraft around. We do a circle around this farmer ploughing his field, and then he decides he's going to gain some height. So he gained some height, and once we got some height, he said to me, would you like to take control of the aircraft? And I said, okay. So he said, okay. He said, don't touch the pedals. He said, I've got the pedals. He said, you take the stick. So I grabbed hold of the stick in front of me, and he said, no. He said, that's too tight. You're holding it too tight. Let go of it for a second. I did. And he said, now cup your hands around it, but don't actually touch it. And so I did that. And then he said, right, he said, can you see where the stick is? He said, I'm not holding it either. He said, the aircraft's actually flying itself. He said, so if you grasp it very lightly where it is, he said, you've then got control of the aircraft. So that's what I did. I grasped it very lightly, and he said, that's it. He said, that's perfect. He said, right, would you like to try a turn? So we did a turn to the left, we did a turn to the right, and then restored it to straight flight again. And then he said to me, do you fancy doing a loop-the-loop? I went, all right, go for it. So he said, okay, I've got control, he said. He took the joystick back, and he said, right, he said, what we've got to do, he said, we've got to put it into a dive first to pick up the speed. He said, then when we get to the bottom of the dive, I'd pull it back, and we'd pull it up and over into a loop-the-loop. So that's what he did. And it didn't feel like the aircraft was going particularly fast, but he puts the nose down. Yeah, we go into a dive, and then right at the bottom of the dive, he pulls back on the stick, and up we go over and back to level flight again. Well, I was going green by this time, guys. I get really travel sick, and this really got me going. I kept quiet. I must have gone really quiet after that, because I didn't ask him any questions after that. Anyway, we land at the airport. Everybody comes over to greet us to see how we got on, and it was a fabulous day. I took my granddad back to Newmarket and dropped him off, and then I went back with my family, because my wife and children were with us, and so we go back to our house, and I'm very quiet going back, and my wife knew I wasn't well. And she said, you don't feel very well, do you? I said, no. And we got back, and I was really sick. I mean, I was really ill. I couldn't hold it back anymore. I did get out of the car. I wasn't ill in the car, but I was ill. And the next day, because this was a Sunday, I went to the Airshow, to the airport to fly the Tiger Moth. The next day was a Monday, which I had to go back to work. And at the time I worked at a body shop, and that was a really good job. I loved working there. first time I'd ever worked in a body shop, and I was their resident mechanic. So I was doing maintenance, service work, and what they call strip and fit. When a car has an accident, they come in. What they initially do is they'll pull most of the damage out, and then once they've got it back to more or less the right shape, they then get me to strip it out, and then they do their panel work. Anyway, so the Monday morning I was supposed to go back to work. So Monday morning appears, I don't feel sick anymore, but I've got a really sore lip. My top lip was really sore. And I looked in the mirror and I'd got a lump on it. But other than that, it felt right. I couldn't feel anything inside my mouth. It was just the lip was really sore, really swollen. So I go to work. Part way through the day I said, it's no good, I'm going to have to go and see my doctor. My lip's really sore. So I went to see my doctor. And the doctor had one look at it and he said, you need some antibiotics. He said, I'll give you a course of antibiotics, that should sort it out. He said, let me know if it gets any worse. So I go down to the chemist's, I get the antibiotics, start taking them. The next day when I woke up, my lip was huge and my whole side of my face had swollen up and I couldn't open an eye on one side. It's swollen up that much. So I phoned up the doctor. And the doctor said, right, go straight over to Bury Hospital. So I went over to A&E and they took one look at me and they admitted me straight away. And I'd got an abscess in my top lip. Nothing to do with my teeth. I think I'd got a infection in one of my sort of whiskers, in one of my hair whiskers, and it just gone haywire. And the whole side of my face was swollen up. I looked like the Elephant Man. And so I ended up having to have the abscess drained, and then I was off work for about a week. And they had this huge wad of bandages on my top lip to hold the wadding in, because once they drain all the pus out, they have to put an iodine soaked packing in there to clean it all out. And so every other day I was having to go back to the doctor's surgery, and the nurse was changing the wadding. She'd pull it out with a pair of tweezers, and it must have been about 1 metre long, this wadding. How they could get it in there, I don't know. But it did the trick. It took all the infection out, and then they eventually sewed me up. And I have got a scar on my top lip, but it's not that obvious, fortunately for me. But yeah, that was my exploits with going for a flight in the Tiger Moth. And then the following week I was off work because I had this abscess in my top lip. Yeah. I don't know how old I'd have been. I was working at the body shop. I worked at the body shop from 89 to 95, that's right. So it was somewhere in there. A long time ago. Happy memories though. And the last time I ever went to an air show, that was Mildenhall Air Show, the last one, and it was the last one they ever did. Because then we had all the conflicts kicking off. We had 9/11 kick off, and the air shows were all cancelled. And so that was the last one I went to, was just before 9/11. So that's a long time ago. But yeah, what a fantastic time it was. Really lovely time. I just have wonderful memories of my grandfather taking me to all these places. He did actually take me to the Farnborough Air Show. And that one, he was a bit sneaky. What happened was he had an invite come to him at the he worked at Marshall's Airfield in Cambridge, and he had an invite. I think it was I don't know if it was just for him or whether it was for the garage itself, but anyway, he got this ticket. And he said to me, we're going to go to Farnborough Air Show. And it wasn't a public day, this was like a trade day. And so we hop this car and we go down to the Farnborough Air Show. And we get to the gate, and he goes to drive in, and the fella stops him at the gate, asks him for his ticket. And he says, oh, you can't take children in, this is a trade day. And my grandfather said, oh no, I've got special permission. He said, I've got to go and see somebody in the office. And the bloke said, okay. He said, we'll go and park over there and go and sort it out. So my granddad said, okay. So he parks the car, he disappears for a little while, comes back and just drives into the airfield. He hadn't got permission at all, but we got into the Farnborough Air Show. And it was really good. And it was it was like a sales one. The Farnborough Airshow then was like, it's aimed at the airlines and countries that want fighter aircraft or helicopters. It was that sort of trade show, but it was really good. I really enjoyed that. Never been there since, but that was the only time I went to Farnborough. So Waterbeach, Farnborough and Mildenhall. There's one other I did, which was Shuttleworth, and Shuttleworth I really enjoyed. Now I took my grandfather to this one, and this is near Bedford, Shuttleworth. So if you've never been, it's a really good one, and it's aimed more at the old aircraft, sort of First World War, Second World War aircraft. Nothing with jet engines. It's all propellers, and it's a lovely one to go to because it's not as noisy. It's more relaxed, a lovely atmosphere, a bit like an air show would have been in the 1960s. Really laid back. Anyway, I took my grandfather to this. Now, I'd lost my nan by this time, so I was taking my granddad out for weekends. I was taking him out places, and I took him to this air show. And it wasn't cheap to get in. It was quite an expensive one to do because it was their main air show of the year. So I'd arranged it all, bought the tickets, in we go. We hadn't been there probably half an hour, and my grandfather turned around to me and he said, "When you're ready." I said, "Sorry?" He said, "When you're ready, I'm ready to go when you're ready." And I went, "Really?" We'd only just got there, so I thought, no way. I've spent a fortune getting these tickets, and no sooner we got there than he wanted to go. The actual air show itself hadn't even started. So we managed to stay there for a couple of hours, and then I had to take him home. So I missed a lot of it, but I did take him there. But it was a lovely air show, and that's one I wouldn't mind doing again because it was, the aircraft moved slow. It wasn't like these jet aircraft and really noisy and then going right up into the clouds and you're not being able to see them anymore. It was all biplanes or early Second World War aircraft, and it was lovely. It's a lovely, lovely day. And I really enjoyed that, but I've never been there again to an air show. I have been there since, but not to an air show, just as a day visitor at a weekend, just to go and have a look around. And what I used to do is I used to try and find places to go as April, so I could cross-dress and go out for the day. So it got me away from my ex and the children, and it was a day out for me, and I'd go and spend a day there. And they'd also got some gardens there. Can't remember what they call them. Alpine gardens. They've got some gardens attached to the actual, I've forgotten the name of the place. I've just been talking about it all this time, haven't I? They've got a garden as well as the airfield side. I don't know what the gardens are called. The airfield is Shuttleworth, but I think the gardens are called Alpine Gardens or something like that. But again, I've spent the whole day there, walking around the actual airfield side, looking at the aircraft, then in the gardens, taking lots of photos, and that was lovely. I really, really enjoyed that. April for a day, and that was so nice. But I was having to be sneaky there because I was having to leave the house in my male guise. Then I'd have to pull up somewhere, like a lay-by or some secluded spot, and change my clothing and put my wig on and my makeup, and then spend the day as April. And then when I went home, I had to stop again and get myself back into boy mode. So I got home so nobody knew what I'd been up to. And that's what I used to do back then. And I went to other places other than Shuttleworth. I went to Brooklands was a good one. Duxford, loved Duxford. Duxford was a really good one. There's another one up Norfolk, a military vehicle museum. I can't remember what that one was called now. And I used to go there. So lots of places I used to go as April, all on my own. And it was great. It was really good fun. But now I don't have to do that because now I've got a partner to go with, so I can share my days now with somebody. And I don't have to hide anymore. I'm not pretending to be April anymore. I am April. That is who I am. And I am living my life, guys. I am having such a good time. Such a good time. And this is how it should have always been. Right, I have finished the washing, so I'm going to do my apple pies now. Snoop's given up on me. He's gone back in the doggy day room, I think. But that's all the washing done. I'm pretty sure that Skippy's come back down and probably is in the front room. Time-wise now, it's 21:38 hours, so perfect timing for my apple pies. Like that, I have got the slow cook, which is just there above my finger. That is to be washed up, but I've got that soaked with some boiling water and washed up liquid in it. So I'll probably leave that until tomorrow and then clean that tomorrow. That's what we did the chicken in earlier. Everything else is done. Right, if I move the camera over here, I can do my apple pies. Here we go. Is that Snoop there? No, there's no dogs at the moment, look. Keep your eyes, because you know what it's like. As soon as I open that cupboard door and start doing my apple pies, they will be in here like a shot. Right. I have quite a few of my subscribers sending me messages saying they find my videos really, really lovely to watch, really relaxed and chilled out. But this is what I'm like. This is how I live my life, guys. My life's like this every day. This is wonderful. Other than having to go to work, but we all have to do that. And I do still go to work as April, but obviously not dressed up because it would ruin my dresses. So, yeah. Right, let's get this off again. Try not to pull my hair out. Right, here we go. I'll hook it over. There you go, we're done. Whew, I'm hot now. Right, let's hook that up. I'll grab a spoon while I'm up this end. There comes Sooty. Sooty came because of the spoon. See how long it is before Snoop comes in. Keep your eye on that doorway. Snoop should appear any minute now. Right, the dish is on the side. Nothing yet, no response yet. Oh, now I can hear him coming. Here he comes. Who's on the sofa? I heard him jump down. So we're all here. There you go, fellas. You are good boys. You are good boys. Right, apple pies, guys. Hello. Hello. Managed to stick my finger in the custard. Right. Right, the boys are waiting for their crusts as usual. So I've got enough apple pies for today and tomorrow. I might not have any tomorrow because I've got my younger sister coming round and we're going to be having some fish and chips. So I probably won't be hungry in the evening if I have fish and chips. We'll have to see. Right, that's one done. Oh. Here's number 2. 2, 3, 4. Right. Right, these are for the boys. Come on in, guys, over here. Okay, sit down, both of you. Sit down, sit. Good boys, stay. Yes, good boys. Right, the boys have got their apple pies. Let me just twist it so you can see my boys. There they are. I'll try and keep out of the way while they're eating, guys. Good boys. You are good fellas. I think I'm going to have them cold tonight, guys. It's not particularly hot tonight, so I think I'm going to have shall I have them hot or cold? No, I'm going to have them cold. I had them hot last night. Let's have them cold. Right. Excuse me, guys. Thank you. There we go. Right, I've got my apple pies. The boys have finished their grazing, so I'm going to stop the camera now, load this video on for you guys. It's 29 minutes long and I shall put it on for you, and then the next one I do will be putting the boys to bed and going upstairs. So I'm going to sign it now. Love you all to death, and I shall chat with you a little bit later. Okay, bye bye.